My wife said she needed a man who would fight for her, so I stayed silent, gathered proof carefully, and ended our marriage on my own terms quiet. She needs a man who will fight for her, Karen said, crossing her legs like she was on a damn talk show. I didn't blink. We were in the middle of marriage counseling, but it felt more like a trial. Me as the defendant, her as the self-appointed victim, and the therapist as the poor sap stuck in between, paid to nod and scribble on a legal pad. Karen had been monologuing for 15 minutes about how I was passive, how I checked out emotionally, and how she needed someone who made her feel alive. She tossed in the phrase emotionally sterile like she just discovered it on a blog post titled, "Top 10 Ways to Shame Your Husband Without Technically Lying." The counselor, Dr. Neil something, looked at me with that careful, overly practiced concern. You know the type. Eyebrows knit just enough to show empathy, head tilted 10 degrees like he was trying to read the fine print of your soul. Karen sat upright, smug like she thought she just delivered the winning blow in a debate. I didn't speak. I just reached into the leather folder I brought with me and pulled out a small stack of glossy prints, perfectly aligned. I slid them across the table. No words. Neil opened the folder like it was a Pandora's box, and by the time he flipped to the third photo, I saw it. The twitch in his jaw, the sudden shift in his chair. Karen didn't look. Not at first. Her gaze was still locked on me, waiting for a rebuttal, a reaction, a plea, but I had nothing to prove. The photo showed Karen with a man she once introduced to me as a harmless coworker, draped across his lap in a rooftop bar, kissing him in the backseat of a car I didn't recognize, standing hand in hand at the edge of a beach resort I'd never been invited to. Time-stamped, dated, organized. Karen's face finally turned toward the stack, her posture wilted by the second. "Oh," Neil said. Finally, that was it. Just, oh. And honestly, that was enough. Karen's face drained of color as she slowly pushed the folder away like it was something filthy. "You've been spying on me," she whispered, switching tactics faster than a used car salesman. "No," I replied calmly. "I've been listening. The camera just helped fill in the blanks." I know most people would have lost it, raised their voice, slammed a fist. Not me. I've been a high school principal for 26 years. You don't survive teenagers without mastering the art of letting people talk themselves into a corner. And Karen had built herself a damn mansion in one. And hey, while you're still here listening, only 2% of people listening to these stories actually subscribe. If you want to help us hit our first ever 10,000 subscribers and keep the team motivated to deliver more cold-blooded drama like this, hit that button. Takes half a second, and it really helps. All right, back to the wreckage. Karen sat frozen like someone had hit pause. I could almost hear the gears grinding behind her perfectly styled hair, trying to figure out how to spin it. She opened her mouth, then closed it twice. I think Neil finally said, clearing his throat, "We need to pause for today." I stood. Karen didn't. I looked down at her one last time. "You wanted a man who'd fight for you," I said quietly. "I fought, just not the way you expected." And then I walked out. What she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that this wasn't my first move. It was the middle. Karen made spaghetti that night. Her "I'm not guilty" signature dish, chopped basil on top, candles lit like we were newlyweds instead of a pair of aging strangers tap dancing around a minefield. She even wore that lavender blouse I used to like back when we still touched each other without flinching. "Long day?" she asked, twirling her fork like we hadn't just detonated our marriage in a therapist's office 6 hours earlier. "Eventful," I said. That was it. That was our big post-bombshell conversation. She smiled, fake and steady, like she was rehearsing for a commercial. I could practically hear the internal monologue in her head. Stay calm. Stick to the story. Control the narrative. What she didn't realize, what she'd never bothered to consider, was that I'd stopped playing this game a long time ago. I was just watching now. Not reacting, not warning, watching. Her phone buzzed twice during dinner. She glanced at it and flipped it face down both times. Quick fingers. Too quick for spam. Too slow for someone who has nothing to hide. Afterward, she poured herself a glass of white wine and curled up on the couch. I sat in my armchair with a crossword puzzle I had no intention of finishing. Her makeup was still on, light but sharper than usual, lip gloss. She'd gotten lazy about hiding it lately, like she assumed I'd already stopped caring. And in a way I had, but not in the way she thought. See, about 13 months earlier, I found a $118 charge on our joint credit card from a high-end boutique I'd never heard of. I'd asked casually about it. She said it was a gift for a friend's baby shower. I didn't press. I didn't even ask whose baby, but I remembered the store name. A month later, I saw a selfie of her on her lock screen taken in the boutique's dress. That was the first crack. Then came the late meetings, the weekend workshops, the trips that just happened to align with a male colleague's travel schedule. One she insisted was barely a friend, but whose laugh she suddenly quoted all the time. I played dumb. I played patient. I let her build the tower with her own lies. I just measured each brick. But the counseling session, that was the click, the final piece sliding into place. She wasn't looking for reconciliation. She was performing. Performing for the therapist, for herself, for some ghost of an audience that clapped every time she painted herself as the long-suffering wife, married to a hollow shell of a man. It wasn't enough that she betrayed me. She wanted to win while doing it. So, I stopped seeing her as a wife, and started seeing her as a subject. That night, while she scrolled her phone on the couch, I stood up, kissed her on the forehead like nothing was wrong, and said I had a few papers to grade in the office. She smiled. "Don't stay up too late." I didn't answer. Instead, I locked the door to my study, pulled out the manila envelope from my desk drawer, and began labeling the tabs: receipts, timeline, audio, text fragments, hotel incidents, inappropriate work behavior. Not rage, not revenge, just cataloging. She wore the same face, said the same words, laughed the same practiced laugh, but the mask she wore was slipping, and the woman beneath it was so used to lying, she didn't even notice when no one believed her anymore. By the time she looked up from her wine, I was already 10 steps ahead and counting. I taught him sophomore English back when he wore Metallica hoodies and turned in essays late. But now, Thomas ran a phone repair shop that reeked of solder and stale Monster energy drinks. He grinned when he saw me walk in like I was there to reconnect over poetry and commas. I slid Karen's old iPhone across the counter. He raised an eyebrow. Data recovery, deleted texts. Anything still hiding in the backups? He gave me a long look, the kind that shifts a person from nostalgia to suspicion. Personal, professional, I said. Let's call it a long-term behavioral study. Thomas didn't ask more. Maybe he saw something in my eyes. Or maybe he lived long enough to recognize a man who wasn't looking for hope, just confirmation. He took the phone and got to work behind the counter. While his software did its thing, I leaned against the wall, scanning the messy bulletin board of repair invoices, lost AirPods, and a handwritten ad that said, "I can fix your life." Well, your laptop anyway. The irony wasn't lost on me. 20 minutes later, he had a thumb drive ready, text threads, some voicemails, global positioning system logs from 2 months ago, and about 78 photos she thought were deleted, including some, not very parental guidance. I nodded once. "Print the location history, a full map overlay if you can." Thomas blinked. "You really want a heat map of where she's been?" "I'm building a dossier," I said, deadpan. "Every operation needs logistics." He chuckled uneasily but didn't argue. Next up, the voice recorder. I pulled a small velvet pouch from my coat, a gift I'd ordered online 3 weeks prior, barely larger than a thumb, with 20 hours of high-fidelity storage. "Can you help me rig this under a front seat?" I asked. "She drives a Lexus. Too clean for me to tamper with unnoticed." Thomas raised both brows this time. "You sure about this, Mr. K?" "I'm not chasing her," I said. "I'm just documenting gravity." He whistled under his breath. "You always were calm, scary calm." When we stepped out into the parking lot, I parked beside Karen's car and popped the passenger door while she was still at work. 5 minutes and one strategically placed strip of Velcro later, the recorder was affixed under the passenger seat, camouflaged in the upholstery shadows. No mess, no wire showing, no trace. On the way back, I stopped at a Walgreens, bought a red file box, some manila folders and sticky labels. That night, I started assembling the real archive, something that would outlive whisperers and speculation, the kind of thing you drop in a lawyer's lap like a guillotine. Tab 1, April travel, not with me. Tab 2, coworker laughter, Thursday night wine. Tab 3, deleted messages. I can't wait till he's out of the way. Each folder slid in like another quiet nail in a handcrafted coffin. This wasn't anger, it wasn't even heartbreak, it was infrastructure. Because while she was out there playing games, I was drawing blueprints. And when this house finally collapsed, I wanted to be the one holding the evacuation plan. And the deed. The dinner was supposed to be with her sister at a Thai place on 5th. Karen even texted me the menu around noon, circling the Penang curry like we were still that kind of couple. I didn't reply. I'd already seen her calendar alert for the night, marked client dinner, no mention of her sister and definitely no curry. At 6 o'clock, 8 minutes post-meridian, she kissed me goodbye in the driveway, wearing heels too tall for casual family time and lipstick 2 shades past innocent. "Don't wait up," she smiled. I won't, I said, watching her taillights fade like it was the last scene of a badly written sitcom. I got into my car 2 minutes later, took the side street, and kept enough distance that I wouldn't appear in any mirror she bothered checking. She didn't head east toward her sister's place. No surprise there. Instead, she turned north, past downtown, toward the boutique part of town where parking costs more than your conscience. She pulled into the Fowler House Hotel. Not a chain, not a business meeting kind of place either. Fowler is the kind of spot you go to for one thing. Discretion, upscale rooms, no front desk questions, no paper trails. I parked a block away and watched from a newspaper stand like it was 1950. She exited her car, straightened her blouse in the window's reflection, and walked through the automatic doors without hesitation. No phone out, no confusion. This wasn't a first time. 12 minutes later, a man joined her, late 30s, tailored suit, confident in the way guys are when they know they've been invited. He didn't knock. He didn't check in. He just walked past the front desk, rode the elevator, and disappeared. I waited another 20. And I stepped inside. I didn't speak to the staff. I didn't need to. I walked like I belonged, shoulders squared, tie loose like I just left a conference call. The front desk clerk gave me a polite nod. I nodded back. The elevator had a mirrored interior. As I stared at myself, I noticed something bizarre. I didn't look angry, just hollowed out like a man halfway between mourning and revenge. I didn't go to their floor. I went to the business center, empty, quiet, and just close enough to get the hotel wireless fidelity. I pulled out my phone and tapped into the global positioning system Trace Thomas had rigged to our shared account. Her location pinged steady, room 512. It hadn't moved in 30 minutes. I snapped a photo of the hotel directory. A few minutes later, I took another outside room 512. Door closed, privacy hanger on the knob. Then I took a final photo. The room charge slip left out by the front desk when no one was looking. Paid with a card under the name N. Ryland Corporation. That name meant nothing to me, but it wasn't our account, and it damn sure wasn't her personal card. Time-stamped, sorted, emailed to myself under the subject, Thursday, not her sister. I left through the service exit. That night, Karen came home with greasy takeout bags and a tired smile like she'd just spent 2 hours discussing family gossip over spring rolls. I brought you some Pad See Ew, she offered casually, holding out the box. I took it. Thanks. She didn't notice the new folder in my study labeled Fowler House. Didn't notice the faint smell of her perfume lingering in my car seat when I repositioned it to where I'd been hiding. And most importantly, she didn't notice the camera I'd installed facing our home office desk, set to activate whenever someone used her laptop. Let her keep building her story. I was already halfway through the footnotes. It was a Tuesday night, Karen's version of self-care, which always seemed to involve 2 girlfriends, 3 wine bottles, and a playlist of early 2000s breakup anthems, loud enough to make our dog hide in the laundry room. I stayed upstairs in the guest room, pretending to grade papers while they cackled like a trio of witches in the kitchen below. The next morning, the house reeked of Merlot and self-righteousness. Lipstick-stained glasses still sat in the sink. One of her friends had left her scarf behind. Silk, floral, overpriced. I folded it neatly and dropped it into the lost and not worth carrying bin in the garage. Then I went back upstairs, opened my laptop, and played the audio file from the voice recorder I'd hidden in the dining room light fixture 3 nights prior. I timed the install during a fake phone call with my brother, talking loud enough about lawn fertilizer to make Karen roll her eyes and walk off. Now I sat in silence, listening to my wife laugh harder than I'd heard in years. Not with me, of course. At me. You don't get it, Karen said between gulps. Michael is so slow. I could be living 2 lives and he'd still be asking if I need help with the groceries. The second voice, Brenda, I think, snorted. You already are, babe. You just don't charge rent for the second one. Laughter. Then a third voice, maybe Tasha, chimed in. He's still doing the dishes, right? Bless his heart. Of course he is, Karen said, glass clinking. Guy folds laundry like it's a love letter. Meanwhile, I'm out here living my best real life. More laughter. Drunken giggles. Someone slurred a Taylor Swift lyric. I paused the playback, sat back, let it sink in. It wasn't the betrayal that got me. That part was already a scar. It was the joy, the absolute glee in her voice when mocking the man who held her hair back during food poisoning, who bought her dad a recliner when he was recovering from hip surgery, who took night shifts during flu season so she could sleep in peace. It's a strange thing realizing someone doesn't just disregard you, they enjoy doing it. I labeled the file Exhibit C, Tuesday wine night. Then I moved the entire recording to a flash drive labeled Final Session. I didn't need to listen again. I didn't need to cry. I just needed to be prepared. Karen walked in 2 hours later, holding a yoga mat like it was proof of redemption. She smiled. Feel like salmon tonight? Sure, I said. I'll grill. She kissed my cheek. You're sweet. I looked her in the eye and smiled back. You have no idea. The manila envelope was hand-delivered to my office by a courier who didn't ask questions, just nodded, signed the drop-off slip, and disappeared like he was trained to be forgettable. I waited until the last student had been dismissed for detention before locking my door and sitting down at my desk. Inside, 12 glossy prints, high-resolution, time-stamped. Photo 1, Karen at an outdoor cafe, hair curled, sunglasses perched in that effortless look at me without looking at me way. Opposite her sat a man I recognized immediately, Paul Given, director of accounts, smug, preppy, and insufferably tanned year-round. She'd mentioned him once during a conversation we didn't finish. He's harmless, she'd said when I noticed his name showing up in a few late-night texts, barely even an acquaintance. Photo 2, Karen leaning forward, laughing, hand touching his wrist, his eyes locked on her like a man mid-hunt. Photo 3, a valet snapshot, his hand on her lower back, lingering too long for casual. She didn't flinch. In fact, she leaned into it. Photo 4, the two of them standing beside a black Audi. His, probably. She kissed him. Not a peck, not a goodbye, a kiss that knew what it wanted. There were more. Park benches, hotel awnings, a rooftop bar with string lights, all silent witnesses to something she'd sworn didn't exist. I closed the envelope, slid it into the drawer under final prep, and exhaled slowly. Not relief, not rage, just an exhale like checking off a to-do item you've been putting off for too long. I didn't confront her that night. She came home chirping about her long quarterly planning session and how they were thinking of moving some regional accounts to Charlotte. I asked how Paul was doing. She blinked once too long. Same as always, she replied. Too casual. Still can't stop talking about his golf handicap. I just nodded. Must be exhausting. She smiled. You have no idea. Oh, but I did. Instead of reacting, I logged into our therapist's online portal and scheduled a new session for next week. Marked it urgent. Not because I wanted answers, because I was ready to hand over the evidence. The counselor thought we were still navigating rough seas. Poor guy didn't realize I'd already spotted the iceberg and started building my own lifeboat. Karen was still performing, still sticking to her role in the little soap opera she choreographed, but the curtain was coming down. And this time, I was the one writing the final act. She arrived to the session in a fitted navy dress I'd never seen before. Hair blown out, makeup pristine, perfume heavy enough to linger after she walked in. She sat on the edge of the leather couch like she was being filmed, back straight, chin tilted slightly up, like a woman prepared to deliver a monologue about how hard it is to love a man who doesn't try anymore. The therapist, Neil, ever neutral, welcomed us with his usual zen energy and uncapped his pen. I gave him a polite nod, no smile. Karen leaned in. I've been thinking about what I said last time, she began, eyes flicking toward me, then back to Neil, and I realized I want someone who will fight for me. Her voice cracked just a little. She'd been practicing. I want passion, she continued. Someone who shows they care. I mean, what's the point of love if the other person just sits there like a stone, you know? Neil nodded gently. And Michael, how do you respond to that? I reached down beside me, unzipped the small black portfolio I placed carefully on the couch when I arrived. I took out a stack of neatly sorted papers and a flash drive clipped to the corner. I didn't speak. I simply slid it across the glass coffee table to Neil. He blinked. What's this? Everything, I said, eyes still locked on Karen. Neil opened the folder. He glanced at the first page, a color photo of Karen at the rooftop bar with Paul Given, her hand grazing his chest, lips close. Karen's smile froze. Wait, what is this? He flipped to the second page, a transcription of a voice recording. Karen, Michael's so slow. I could be living two lives. Brenda, you already are, babe. Neil's pen stopped moving. Where? Where did you get this? Karen's voice cracked in earnest now. Page 3, receipts, hotel bookings. A corporate card with the N. Ryland Corporation name. Global positioning system data. Location pings that placed her Lexus outside the Fowler House Hotel for separate times, each on a night she'd said she was meeting her sister. Page 4, a screenshot of an email exchange between Karen and Paul. Can't wait to see you again. He's still clueless. Laughing out loud. Neil put the folder down, eyes wide now, as if unsure if he should keep playing therapist or call for a witness protection program. Karen stared at me. You've been spying on me. I've been watching, I said evenly. There's a difference. She turned to Neil. You're seriously going to let him invade my privacy like this? This is emotional abuse. Neil raised a hand slowly. Karen, I think we need to pause for a moment. No, this is manipulation. He's trying to turn you against me. He didn't say a word, Neil replied, voice suddenly quiet. The evidence did. Karen stood up abruptly, dress rustling, eyes wild. This is entrapment. He's making it look worse than it is. It is what it is, I said, voice like a scalpel. You said you wanted someone who'd fight. I just didn't realize you meant against me. She started to cry. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. The tears came easy with her. But for once, I didn't feel the urge to comfort. I didn't hand her a tissue. I didn't reach out. I let her sit in it. Neil closed the folder gently, hands trembling just enough to betray his professional calm. Michael, what do you want to happen next? I already have a plan, I said. This session was just to make sure the story is told correctly. Now that we're all caught up, I'm done here. Karen turned to me, mascara streaking, a desperate crack breaking through her performance. But I was already standing, already reaching for the doorknob, already walking out. She wanted drama. I gave her documentation. The house changed overnight. Karen stopped trying to pretend the air was breathable. The kitchen, once filled with that fake cheer and overcooked salmon, now felt like a battlefield where even the hum of the refrigerator was holding its breath. She didn't cook, didn't ask how my day was. She barely looked at me unless it was to hiss something like, "So, this is who you really are, a spy in your own home." I didn't reply. I just folded my socks in the laundry room like a man preparing for a long war of attrition. She stormed around, muttering words like surveillance, emotional abuse, invasion of privacy, as if I'd broken into her life, instead of simply opening the doors she left unlocked. She tried to make me the villain, painting herself into the martyr role. But I didn't rise to the bait. The next day, I moved into the guest room, not with a suitcase or ceremony, just my shaving kit, 2 drawers worth of clothes, and the book I'd been reading. I laid the doorstop gently and shut the door each night behind me, not to keep her out, but to keep my sanity in. She followed once, leaned against the doorframe like a woman in a bad soap opera. So, that's it. You're just going to pretend like I'm some criminal? I didn't look up. I don't have to pretend. Her laugh was sharp. You're pathetic. You couldn't fight for me. So now you want to punish me with silence. No, I said quietly. I just finally accepted what I already knew. You're not my partner. You're my liability. That night, I sent a formal notice of separation to her work email. Short, legal, unemotional. I copied my lawyer, sent a duplicate to her personal inbox, marked it read receipt requested. Then I made the real move. I called my sister, then my oldest friend, Jonathan, then 3 couples from our shared social circle, the ones Karen would have sprinted to first if she could have gotten ahead of me. I told them calmly that Karen and I were separating, that I wouldn't go into detail, that I wished her peace. I didn't need to drag her name through the mud. She was already doing that herself. The fallout began slow. One of her wine night friends ghosted her within a week. Her own brother called to ask if everything was okay, in that voice people use when they've already heard something and are pretending not to know. I heard her on the phone one night whispering urgently, "He's making me look like the villain. You know how he is, quiet, calculating. He's probably got everyone fooled." She didn't realize how little I had to say for people to start asking their own questions. And when the silence grows louder than the excuses, there's nothing left to hear but the truth. She slammed the door after one particularly bitter night and shouted from the hallway, "You think you're so noble? This won't end how you think." I didn't even flinch. I just turned the page in my book and let the cold settle into the walls. Paul Given was always chasing the next rung, corner office, title upgrade. The kind of man who referred to himself as a strategic thinker in LinkedIn posts that nobody asked for. So, when word got out that he was being considered for a regional vice president promotion, I knew exactly what was coming. I didn't need to sabotage him. I just needed to give gravity a nudge. A week after I moved into the guest room, I sent an anonymous envelope, typed neutral, no fingerprints, to the Human Resources Department of Karen's firm. Inside, a simple statement accompanied by a universal serial bus drive, labeled for internal review. The statement read, "This is submitted out of concern for the ethical standards of your leadership team. Mr. Given has engaged in a sustained relationship with a subordinate who is currently married." Attached are time-stamped photos, hotel receipts, and recorded conversations captured outside company hours. But within context that may raise serious professional concerns. The involved party, Karen, last name, is under his management tier. No drama, no accusations, just facts, just enough to get the gears turning. Human resources departments don't like messy. They like clean, controlled reputations. They like plausible deniability. What they don't like are two employees tangled in a quiet affair, one of whom is up for a role that requires press access and brand responsibility. It took 4 days. Karen came home early on a Thursday, face flushed, makeup half wiped. She dropped her purse on the floor like it weighed 100 pounds and went straight to the kitchen. I heard the wine bottle open before I even stepped out of my study. "They're placing me on leave," she said, not looking at me. "Pending investigation." I said nothing, just leaned on the doorframe and waited. They said someone submitted materials, she continued. Photos, transcripts, hotel receipts. Can you believe that? Receipts. "Michael, people are thorough," I said. She looked up sharply. "You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know this was you?" "I haven't spoken to anyone at your company," I said, and that was the truth. Her eyes narrowed. "Then who?" "Maybe it was Paul's wife," I offered, "or an intern with a conscience. Or maybe it was just karma running on time for once." She opened her mouth to respond, but couldn't find the line between rage and shame. The next week was a slow disintegration. Paul's promotion was delayed indefinitely. He stopped answering Karen's texts. She started whispering on the phone again, urgent, breathless calls to friends, lawyers, her sister, trying to do damage control. But the more she scrambled, the more people noticed. Rumors bloomed like mold. Brenda from Wine Night posted a cryptic Facebook status. "You never really know who someone is until Human Resources does." Tasha removed Karen from the group chat altogether. By Friday, even Karen's yoga instructor paused her subscription, citing a realignment of class energy. Her world wasn't collapsing all at once. It was shrinking, closing in on her like a tightening noose. And I didn't have to lift a finger. I just made sure the mirror was clean when she finally looked at it. She wore gray this time, not black, not navy gray, like ash, like someone who knew the fire had already passed through. And now there was only smoke and silence left. No lipstick, hair tied back, no performance, just a woman trying to scrape together dignity from a pile of smoldering decisions. "I just want to talk," Karen said as I took my seat across from her. Neil looked older somehow, like 3 sessions had aged him a decade. He didn't smile, didn't ask how we were doing, just nodded like a man who'd rather be anywhere else but was too professional to say it. Karen leaned forward. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, Michael." I waited. "I was lost," she said. "I thought I needed something more, but I didn't realize I already had someone who cared, who showed up, who didn't abandon me even when I had." She choked like the words burned going down. "I was scared. I got selfish. I thought maybe if I pushed you, you'd show you cared. But instead, I hurt you. I see that now. And I'm sorry." She started crying. Real tears, possibly. But the thing about people like Karen is they don't cry until the audience is already leaving the theater. Neil glanced at me. "Michael." I didn't respond. Just reached down and pulled out the final document from my leather folder. No photos this time, no recordings, just clean legal clarity. Divorce papers already signed by me, neatly paper-clipped, 2 copies. I handed them to Neil. Karen stared at them like they were written in another language. "What is this?" "I figured we'd make good use of the time," I said calmly. "You wanted resolution. So did I." "But Michael, please," she stammered, voice cracking. "We could go to counseling. Real counseling. We could—" "No," I said, quiet. "Final. You said you wanted someone who'd fight." She nodded quickly. "Yes, because I thought I stood. I did," I said. "I fought, just not for you." Karen froze. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Neil, who was suddenly very busy not making eye contact with either of us. "Michael, don't throw this away," she said, now reaching, begging. "This isn't you." I looked at her one last time. The woman who wore a mask for so long, she forgot what her real face even looked like. "No," I replied. "This is me. You just never paid enough attention." Then I walked out. No drama, no slammed doors, no final words screamed through tears, just footsteps echoing down the hallway. And behind me, a woman who finally understood that silence wasn't weakness. It was the sound of a man leaving on his terms.